Could all participants mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a committee member wishes to speak, can they please put their hand up if they can be seen, or use the raise hand function? Better that, because I look at that first. If a committee member raises their hand via the function and is not subsequently invited to speak by the chair, please could they turn their camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of myself and/or Democratic Services Officer as soon as possible. If required, participants can dial into the meeting using a telephone number provided on the invite. If for any technical reason any person parties the proceedings is unable to hear, then the meeting will be adjourned for a short time to allow contact to be made. It's important to remember that all parties must hear all the proceedings unless they themselves decide to leave. And please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and/or to grab the attention of the chair or Democratic Services Officer only. Right, onto the agenda. We start with apologies for absence.
All present, Chair.
Thank you for that, Gareth. I do have apologies from Councillor Aruba Sivanyanam, who was hoping to join us, but she's away at another meeting. Item 2 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of April. Oh, before we start that, I want to alert everyone to the fact that we do have an urgent item under item 10, which will be the final, hopefully, decisions on the model farm proposal. And I understand everybody has received the report from our independent advisor on that for to be considered. So we'll come to that at item 10. So minutes of the item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of April 2023. Can I acknowledge these are the true record?
Yes,
Yeah.
Chair.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest, if any. I see no hands. Agenda item 4, Public Rights of Way Subcommittee. Now, this is for noting as the makeup of the meeting was, I believe, decided at the well, I know it was decided at full council the other day, and so we just, I mean, basically, we just need to note that unless anybody has any comments or anything else that they want to make.
Happy to note, Chair.
Happy to note. Thank you, Councillor Perks. So that's that matter dealt with. So the membership of the committee is as in your papers. Item 5, report to the head of sustainable development, building regs, applications, other built-in control matters determined by the head of sustainable development and delegated powers. Again, this is for noting.
Happy to note, Chair.
Thank you. I see no hands. Item 6, planning applications determined by the head of sustainable development under delegated powers. Again, for noting.
Happy to note, Chair.
Again, thank you. Item 7, appeals. Now, I think Ian Robinson, you just wanted to, there are 2 new appeals that you wanted to just introduce.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, there are no appeal decisions on the report. It's just the report just notes the 2 new appeals received. One relates to the refusal of planning permission for a dormer extension in Penarth that officers felt was harmful to the character of the area, and the second one, bear with me, relates to
land at West Orchard
That's
Farm.
right. That's right. Serving the notice. So this is the matter that committee saw some months ago, where we authorised as a committee the service of enforcement notice relating to the change of use of the land from agriculture to storage of all sorts, really, building materials, miscellaneous items. Yeah, so that's just to say an appeal has been submitted against that notice.
Thank you. Right, moving on. Trees, again, I believe this is just for noting.
Sorry,
Happy
Chair, I
to note,
believe
Chair.
Councillor Bruce has a hand up.
Oh, is she? I didn't
Or she
see.
did have, Chair.
Councillor Bruce, you have your hand up. Councillor Bruce? You don't have your hand up.
Sorry, where was the land at? Where did you say for the appeal? I missed it.
Land at
Yeah.
West Orchard Farm, St Athan.
Yeah, it's just off higher
St.
end. Just off
Athan.
higher end. Yeah, that road that goes out from sort of St Athan Centre, going out in a westerly
Right.
direction towards what you can link up with the B4265. Yeah, it's land just north of that road behind some dwellings on a higher end.
Right. Sorry, yes, I missed the St. Athan bit. Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on then. Trees, agenda item 8.
Happy
Again
to
for
note.
noting. Thank you. Right, that brings us on to agenda item 9, planning applications, land at Haler, Pentir, Bruce. Ian Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, if I share my screen so I can share the plans of the proposal.
By all means.
Thank you. Can I just check these are being shared?
Yeah, I can see them.
Lovely.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can see
We
them.
can see it.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is a reserved matters planning application for 15 affordable dwellings and flats on land by Haler Pentir in Roos. Committee members, probably we don't see reserved matters layouts and schemes all that much. We did a few in Barry Waterfront a while ago, which were called in. This one actually ordinarily could be dealt with under delegated powers, albeit it was set up as a committee report from the start because of the number of units. But just a bit of background as to why members might think why we see in this reserved matters application and we don't usually. This is a proposal for. Sorry, I'm sharing the wrong plan there. Here we go. This is a proposal for 15 dwellings and flats, comprising 9 dwelling houses to the northern part of the site and 6 flats in the southern part of the site. So this received outline planning permission a while ago. Some of the members of the committee probably may recall the outline application. This was actually the indicative plan that came with the outline application. It was only indicative, albeit you can see that the reserve matter scheme in front of us now is very similar. The main difference is probably that at the front here, where you can see this block wasn't really running parallel to the road. Officers have spent quite a long time actually negotiating with the developers to reorientate it, not just to give a better frontage to the street, but to actually make the space within the development more usable. So in its previous form, it kind of ate into this area here, which meant that there was only really incidental space around the building. But now actually by orientating it better towards the road, it enables more usable space around the building. And it also shows an informal local area for play to the right of the access road. So the dwellings themselves fairly conventional in appearance. That's the apartments will be at the front of the block, the front of the site, sorry. And the dwelling houses here, as I said, fairly conventional in appearance, reflective of the character of the dwellings on the adjoining estate. There's only been one objection received to the application. And that was from a property north of the railway line. So a property we don't feel will be adversely affected given the distance to the site. And then in terms of the neighbours nearer to the site, you can see the dwellings are broadly in line with the existing house here. So it shouldn't result in any kind of overbearing impacts towards their garden. Parking spaces, we've got 1 per flat, 2 per dwelling, plus 3 visitor spaces. to show the photos, there's actually an existing kind of vehicle access already off Hale Pent here. It only leads to the vacant site. Trying to find it. There you go. You can see it there. So an access has started to be formed here. So the development would utilise the existing access. But other than that, it's just kind of scrub land at the moment. So all matters of principle were considered the outline stage. This is really very much just looking at the detailed layout and whether it kind of conforms to, you know, amenity space, parking, are the dwellings of an acceptable design scale in that context. So that's probably all I have to say about it, Chair, for now.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Bruce.
Can you remind me? I thought there were shops going there. I thought there was shops as well, I should say, or underneath the flats.
There was consent a long time ago for a mixed use that involved shops. Just looking at the planning history, I think that was back in sort of around 20 or so years ago. So there was, actually 30 years ago, I think the first one that showed that. Yeah, it formally there was plans that showed that, but the most recent outline application was just for residential.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Champion.
Can you go through the materials?
It can. There is actually members will notice that the recommendation is relatively light on conditions. That's because pretty much all the vast majority of conditions were put on the outline application. So there is actually a condition on here that asks for details of materials before they're used. Let me just check the wording of that. Yeah, it says notwithstanding the submitted details, a schedule of materials, including samples, to be submitted and approved prior to their use. So the plans show or suggest a brick, but it needn't necessarily be as per shown on the elevations. There is a condition that requires that, so we can, when the developer's got the opportunity, if permission is granted, to sort of source materials, we can then consider the appropriateness of those in the context of the neighbouring development.
Yes, because a brick can be anything between 300 and 500, I would imagine.
Yeah,
1,000. You know what I mean? We need a fairly decent quality here, don't we?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay.
Right, thank you. Councillor Ernest.
Yes, Chairman. It just strikes me from looking at the plan that the development looks very bland to me. Pretty uninteresting. And I thought we were sort of striving to obtain a higher standard of development, particularly in the rural parts of the Vale as well. I'm almost picking up on the point made by my colleague about materials just now, but I'm interested to hear that there is a condition in there where we could maybe insist on materials that make the building look a little bit more exciting. I find it disappointing in 2023 that we're putting up fairly bland standard blocks with a door and a window, just like, you know, kids draw at school. I probably used to do the same. And I would just hope we'd have an improved standard of construction for the people who are going to live in them. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the standard of construction, I have confidence, will be very high. It's an affordable housing scheme. There's really rigorous standards applied to the construction of those houses. I agree, they are relatively simple in form. I think with affordable housing, there's always a budget, and that can result in fairly sort of simple schemes. I think the one in Llangan that was approved, or Fem Gork that was approved a little while ago, is probably a bit out of the norm for an affordable housing scheme, but that was the recipient of grant money from Welsh Government. I think I can't remember the name of it, innovative design or something grant. Yeah, it's always a challenge with budget. I think for me, that's why materials are important. I think actually you can have fairly simple buildings in terms of design if you use good quality materials, and little things like the detailing, like how far the windows are recessed, things like that. You can actually get quite a successful scheme, and I think that's probably good materials on a simple design is probably better than an overly fussy design for the sake of it. But I fully take the point. It is a challenge with affordable housing schemes to try and elevate the design quality. I think there's block paving used here rather than all tarmac, and I think subject to quality materials, I think we're happy it would be a positive development.
Right. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chairman.
Can I just clarify? I'm looking at the pictures on page 25, the drawings on page 25. Those things that look like they might be dormers are actually solar panels, aren't they?
They are, yeah. They're not dormers. No, they're panels, and they're not roof lights either.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Councillor Perry.
Hi, I can see there's a small local area for play there for younger children. What provision is there for the older children and teenagers?
So there's not a larger leap within the development. So there's fundamentally there's not space for that. It's a affordable housing scheme of 15 units, which is less than 25. So it's less than the threshold where we seek kind of contributions on a development this size. It's a balance for me. Affordable housing need really high, and there's obviously there are play facilities in the area, so it's always going to be a balance between making efficient use of the land and trying to address affordable housing need versus kind of maxing out on open space. I think if more of the site were given over to more play areas, more public open space, there's every chance the development probably wouldn't be viable anyway, because there are tight margins on these affordable schemes in any case. We think that this is a happy balance between efficient use of the land, noting the sort of critical affordable housing need we have in this southeastern part of the Vale in particular, and meeting play needs for younger children. I don't think it's possible for it to contain everything and be a viable scheme and make the contribution it could towards affordable housing.
So how many minutes would it take to walk to the nearest leap and the nearest NEEP, which is for teenagers?
I couldn't tell you at the top of my head how many minutes it would take to walk to it. No, I'd have to measure that.
Because if we're going to move towards this sort of 15-minute city idea, then we should really be knowing where the nearest facilities are for the older children, not just the under sixes that the lap is for. So we need to look at the children from 6 to 11 and those 11 to 18 as well.
Yeah. It's not that we don't know where they are. I'm just saying I would be wrong of me to say it would be this many minutes when I've not done that calculation. But this scheme is reflective of the indicative scheme before. It actually has more open space in it than the outline scheme because of how we've reoriented the buildings.
Okay.
I believe that's an area that the Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny are looking to look at as well. Councillor Wilson, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a few points there. I mean, obviously, what Councillor Perry says, obviously, we are looking at placemaking plans. As we know, we discussed this today at Cabinet. And obviously, it's coming to report to ENER, which any member can actually go to and watch and participate, obviously, at discretion of the chair. That's the first point. And the second point is, in relation to the application itself, as you are aware, as all of us are aware, all applications are very much determined not just by the site and where they are, but the viability of it, and especially a scheme involving social or low-cost housing. There's always an issue of how everything stacks up financially, and as we know, we're very fortunate to represent constituent wards in the Vale Glamorgan because it's a lovely, desirable area. But because it's a desirable area, property prices, as we all know, are very high. And this is one of the equations we've got to put into when we look for applications. We also know, as all members, that we have huge demands upon housing. Housing for virtually all of us is probably our number one issue that we get from an everyday perspective. So clearly, this is something that fulfills that objective. So I'd like to move Officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Perks. Councillor Bruce, you have your hand up.
Sorry. I believe it's about a 10-minute walk to Kerry Park.
Thank you for the
where they can play
information.
football, skate park, and I think it should take teenagers about 10 minutes.
Or 5 on the skateboard. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Bruce. Right, we have officers' recommendations moved and seconded. Do I have general support for that? Do I have any opposition? I see no opposition. That's carried. We now then, in fact, move on to what will be our final item today, which is the report from the a report from the appointed external consultant on the model farm proposed development and the appeal on that. Can I welcome both Rob Chichester and Annabelle Graham to the meeting? They're both here. Should we need their contribution and advice? And in fact, I'll ask Rob Chichester to introduce his report that we all received today.
Thank you very much,
John.
Councillor Thomas. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I think so.
Good afternoon, members. As members will be aware, on the 18th of May, a special planning committee was held to provide members with an update on the application at Land Model Farm, Port Road, Roos. Members were informed that the applicants had submitted an appeal to the Planning and Environment Decision Wales, PEDW, citing the reason for the appeal as a failure of the LPA to give the decision within the appropriate period on an application for planning permission. The submission of the appeal against non-determination meant that any formal decision on the application has now been taken out of the member's control and is now within the jurisdiction of PEDW. In line with the advice provided by the external consultants at the meeting, members discussed the specific reasons for refusal they would have provided had they had the opportunity to determine the application and subsequently voted on whether they wished to defend the authority's position at appeal. A motion in support of defending the authority's position was passed, and in consultation with the external professional advisors, the following putative reasons for refusal were agreed. Reason 1. In the absence of any up-to-date preliminary ecology appraisal, the proposed development fails to appraise the biodiversity interest at this site. Therefore, the proposed development fails to incorporate, conserve or enhance biodiversity interests, as those biodiversity interests have not been quantified in the first instance. As a result, the development is contrary to the requirements of Policy SP1, MD2 and Criterion 10, MD9 and MG19 of the Vale of Glamorgan Local Development Plan 2011 to 2026, guidance within the Biodiversity and Development SPG, and the national guidance contained within Planning Policy Wales Edition 11. The second reason for refusal agreed was stated: the proposed development by virtue of its layout, scale and massing would have a harmful impact on the setting of historic assets. The benefits of the scheme are not considered to outweigh the identified harm to the designated heritage assets. The proposed development is therefore contrary to policies SP10 and MD8 of the Vale of Glamorgan Local Development Plan 2011 to 2026, guidance within the Porthcurry Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan SPG, national guidance contained within Planning Policy Wales Edition 11, and Technical Advice Note 24, the historic environment. Notwithstanding the above, members raised an additional objection to the proposed development on climate emergency grounds, citing the authority's declaration to adhere to the Climate Emergency Charter with the Vale Public Services Board and Project Zero and the Project Zero Challenge Plan. On review of the published documents, it was our professional opinion that the Project Zero plan would not constitute adopted planning policy or guidance. As such, an objection based on these grounds would be extremely hard to defend at appeal. The Project Zero plan is, however, based on and references the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, Future Wales National Plan 2040, and the adopted Local Development Plan. The Wellbeing of Future Generations Act 2015 imposes a duty on the council not only to carry out sustainable development, but also take reasonable steps in exercising its function to meet its sustainable development objectives. When considering requirements of Section 3, wellbeing duties on public bodies, and Section 5, the Sustainable Development Principles of Wellbeing of the Future Generations Act 2015, it could be reasonably argued that the development fails to support the Sustainable Principle number 2, which states, excuse me, I can't get the words out there. It's given a resilient Wales, a nation which maintains and enhances a biodiverse nature environment with healthy functioning ecosystems that support social, economical, and ecological resiliences and the capacity to adapt to change, for example, climate change. Turning to the Future Wales, the National Plan 2040, the plan states that the development plan with a strategy for addressing key national priorities through the planning system, including sustaining and developing a vibrant economy, achieving decarbonisation and climate resilience, developing strong ecosystems, and improving the health and well-being of our communities. On review of the overriding key national priorities and policies of the national plan, it could be reasonably argued that the development fails to develop strong ecosystems. Considering the above, it is our professional advice that the recommendation of the first reason for refusal is amended to state, in absence of an up-to-date preliminary ecological appraisal, the proposed development fails to appraise the biodiversity interests at this site. Therefore, the proposed development fails to incorporate, conserve, or enhance biodiversity interests, as those biodiversity interests have not been quantified in the first instance. As a result, the development is contrary to the requirements of policies SP1, MD2, MD9, MG19, and MG19 of the Vale of Glamorgan Local Development Plan 2011 to 2026, guidance within the Biodiversity and Development SPG, national guidance contained within Planning Policy Wales additional level, and additionally we would add the following lines. Policy 9 of the Future Wales National Plan 2040, and the Sustainable Development Principle number 2, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act 2015. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you, Rob. Annabelle, is there anything you feel you should contribute at this time?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Annabelle. Right, we've heard from Rob. We have the two recommendations that he thinks are defendable at the appeal. Councillor Johnson, you have your hand up.
Yes, Chair. I can speak on this. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. First of all, thank Rob and Annabelle for their work on developing and considering the reasons for defending that they gave last week and the amendments here today. I recognise the work that's gone into that, and also the challenges in turning some of the comments made by councillors last week and in the previous meeting into something which is there and defensible. So just a quick couple of points is firstly that for me there's a reference in the notes we've been given where we're just about the councillors discussing the authority's declaration of climate change emergency. I think for me the important issue is actually Welsh Government's declaration of climate change, because fundamentally that is a different that is something which was made after the inspector's test for soundness of the local development plan in 2017. So that came in 2019. Obviously, that declaration was made, and I feel that is what needs to be tested by the inspector. For obvious reasons, I'm happy to accept. Subject to discussion that we're going to have now, maybe other comments. It seems to me that this discusses the Sustainable Development Principle. That's something that I think is useful to include and discuss. And I'm sure that the inspector will listen to the general tenor of a debate that we've had and take those things into consideration above and beyond what we're officially submitting as our reasons for defence. At this point, does that make sense to you, Rob? There.
Yes, Councillor Johnson, and as you pointed out there, the reasons for refusal are punitive reasons for refusal. We can, within the appeal document, within the appeal case, you can widen those elements, but it's the specific reasons that we need to sort of hone in on today. That doesn't prevent you to discuss in the future Generations Act, discussing the National Framework 2014 as well, the National Plan in essence on there. But, you know, we spent several, you know, I spent probably since the last meeting a number of hours looking through this, and, you know, as your external professional advisor, it would be admissive for me to put a reason for the refusal in that couldn't be supported under policy or guidance grounds in essence on there, and hence why we've utilised the we've looked at those policies and those guidelines that are in place to incorporate those within the reasons for refusal on there.
Yeah, thank you for that, Robin. I recognise that, and similarly, I also refer to part of the conversation that was in the last meeting, which was about the challenge of policies on the ground catching up with, you know, with declarations made by governments, and how the time lag between government determining something or making a declaration and those things then being implemented on a local scale, and obviously after the completion of our local development plan. So thank you very much for your work on this.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Robert for basically putting into words our thoughts so succinctly and straightforward. Because we have to fight non-determination, I presume officers will have a reason, not only that we would actually refuse it, but also the reason why we hadn't come to a decision. Surely we have to say why we haven't come to a decision.
We have now, so
yeah, but the appeal was of the 31st of March.
It was, and they were probably premature in doing that, as was noted at the last time we met on this, and that they jumped the gun, I think was one of the phrases used, but we were in the process of making a decision, albeit slowly. They were within their rights to challenge that, but as was explained at the last meeting, normally that would have been delayed to allow us to continue with our process as we were. But they put in this non-determination appeal. It is what it is. We are stuck with that. Our argument would be that was part of the process, and that we were looking to do that because we needed the outside advice, and that would not have been. I think Pedro would not see that as being an unreasonable position.
No, it's just, I guess our legal guys need to have all their ducks in a row as to why we haven't done it. Yeah,
I'm sure they have. James, well, I mean, I think part of the there are two recommendations really, which is firstly to fight the appeal or defend the appeal rather on the basis of the two things that Rob has just gone through, and then the second recommendation is to appoint external to give powers to appoint the external people to, where is it? I'm just trying to find the wording of it. The head of illegal and democratic service operational manager legal services be authorised to appoint external consultants to conduct the appeal on the behalf of the council. So, so that would then be in their hands. It's basically taken out of our hands and put into the hands of the external consultants who will conduct the appeal on our behalf. And the decision then becomes out of Pedro rather than us.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah.
So can I have a proposer and seconder for the recommendations as on the report? I have Charles Champion.
I'd like to propose.
Proposing. Councillor Buckley, you have your hand up.
It was to second the proposal, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. In that case, we have a mover and seconder for the consultant's recommendations. Do I see anyone opposed? Anyone dissenting from that? I see no dissent. I take it that that therefore is carried. Thank you all. I think that completes the business of the day. You can all go out and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Rob and Annabelle, for the work you've been putting in so far, and I look forward to talking with you in the future, including about this matter and others. I leave it to. I wish you all well and wish you all a good evening.
Thank you, Rob.